Brazilians are the citizens of Brazil. A Brazilian can also be a person born abroad to a Brazilian parent or legal guardian, as well as a person who acquired Brazilian citizenship. Brazil is a multi-ethnic society, which means that it is home to people of many ethnic origins. And there is no correlation between one's stock and their Brazilian identity. Being Brazilian is a civic phenomenon, rather than an ethnic one. As a result, the degree to which Brazilian citizens identify with their ancestral roots varies significantly, depending on the individual, the region of the country, and the specific ethnic origins in question. Most often, however, the idea of ethnicity as it is understood in the Anglophone world is not popular in the country. In the period after the colonization of the Brazilian territory by Portugal, during much of the 16th century, the word Brazilian was given to the Portuguese merchants of Brazil wood, designating exclusively the name of such profession, since the inhabitants of the land were, in most of them, indigenous or Portuguese born in Portugal or in the territory now called Brazil. However, long before the independence of Brazil, in 1822, both in Brazil and in Portugal, it was already common to attribute the Brazilian gentile to a person, usually of clear Portuguese descent, resident or whose family resided in the state of Brazil, belonging to the Portuguese Empire, during the lifetime of the United Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil and the Algarves. However, there was confusion about the nomenclature. According to the Constitution of Brazil, a Brazilian citizen is, according to the Constitution, all people who hold Brazilian citizenship are equal, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender or religion. A foreigner can apply for Brazilian citizenship after living for 4 uninterrupted years in Brazil and being able to speak Portuguese, a native person from an official Portuguese language country of the Senate, Presidency of the House of Representatives, officer of the armed forces and diplomat. The population in Brazil is over 204,519,000. Brazilians are mostly descendants of Portuguese settlers, post-colonial immigrant groups, enslaved Africans and Brazil's indigenous peoples. The main historic waves of immigration to Brazil have occurred from the 1820s well into the 1970s. Most of the settlers were Portuguese, Italians, Germans, and Spaniards, with significant minorities of Japanese, Dutch, Armenians, Romani, Greeks, Poles, Russians, Ukrainians, and Levantine Arabs. The 3 principal groups were native Brazilians, European colonizers and African labor. Portugal remained the only significant, but not an exclusive source of European immigration to Brazil until the early 19th century. It is estimated that more than 20,000 Dutch entered Brazil. However, both groups had been forced out of the country after the rule's end. The remaining families mostly fled to remote parts of the interior of northeastern Brazil or changed their names to Portuguese ones. The proven excess of Y chromosomes of the haplogroup 2 in northeasterners probably results from the high miscegenation of Dutch settlers with the local population. The Jews who mostly left Brazil took off to what was then named New Amsterdam, today New York City, and founded the oldest Jewish congregation in the United States, the Congregation Shearet Israel. The ones who stayed, converted into Christianity and were then known as New Christians or Marranos, who sometimes practiced crypto-Judaism. Even if the Jewish population under Dutch Brazil not surpassed a few thousand individuals, a considerably higher number of New Christians, in the past simply absorbed as Portuguese colonizers, arrived in colonial Brazil, especially in the first centuries after 1500. They entered Brazil fleeing from the Inquisition or were deported by the Kingdom of Portugal and also Spain, latter being known as degredados, someone who was sentenced or forced to exile. This also included Romani people from the Iberian Peninsula, what partially explains the curiously high numbers for a Western country. Brazil has the second largest Gypsy population in the Americas after the United States, having also received Roma people from Central and Eastern Europe, as well as the Baltic countries during the 20th century. In 1808, the Portuguese court moved to Brazil. bringing thousands of Portuguese again and afterwards opened its seaports to other nations starting from 1820. This caused the biggest wave of immigration which the country has seen until then. In this period, people from all over the world officially entered Brazil, the vast majority of them Europeans. Between 1820 and the 1950s, Brazil received around 5,686,133 European immigrants, including a thriving Jewish population. In addition, 950,000 Asians settled in Brazil throughout the 20th century, including considerable numbers of Middle Easterners or Christian Levantine Arabs and 270,000 Japanese. The highest figure